It's been more than 2 years since Victoria 3 has been launched, and boy has it been a rough ride. A game that I personally really enjoy. I know that it is getting a lot of hate from the community for the simple fact that the combat system is pretty poo-poo and it doesn't have as much flavor as other Paradox games have, such as EU4, CK3, and so on. Well, after 2 years, we now have the 1.7 patch and the Sphere of Influences DLC that is just about to be launched towards the end of this month after 1 month and a half delay which I personally massively have welcomed, since it was required to do some finishing touches on the DLC and to ensure that the quality of this DLC is the one that the player base deserves. Because let's face it, if this DLC fails and this patch doesn't revive the game, I'm pretty sure that there's not going to be any more further development on it. But I am hopeful that this DLC is going to be the one, because we definitely see all the features that we requested from Vicky 3 from the launch. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say that 1.7 is the launch version of Vicky 3, because now we're getting the features that we wanted from Vicky 3 from day one. We're getting proper spheres of influence, we're getting a revamped diplomatic system, the right culture maps, proper migration implemented, unique flavor for whatever country you're playing as so they don't all feel the same. Tons of flavor focused content is being added with the Sphere of Influence DLC and the 1.7 free patch that comes alongside it. And today we're going to show you exactly what you're going to be getting, since the DLC is around the corner, and I really think that you should give it a shot and get it for yourself, because if this DLC does good, the next DLC I'm almost certain is going to be revamping the combat system, which they are very much aware of is their weak point for the game, and which I know they want to fix, but they don't know if there's enough people still interested in the game, and they're using this as a platform or a launching point to figure out if it's worth investing that much effort into revamping the combat system to basically properly revive the game. Now, there's been a few dev diaries since I last covered the dev diaries for Vicky 3, and I'm going to shortly go through the last few of them, highlight what's most important, and explain to you guys what you should be expecting from this DLC. Yesterday, they released the smorgasbord of changes in 1.7. Not sure what that is, but I think we're going to find out together, aren't we? Now, this particular dev diary is introduced to us by Alex Hesse, a prestigious member of the Vicky 3 development team, and he says it's his turn to bring up another exciting update of what's coming up in 1.7, and he also explains that cool is probably this word, right? Smorgasbord. It means cool, I'm guessing. Am I right, Swedish people? Let me know in the comment section. If I did, then I basically just decrypted an entire language. I found the Rosetta Stone of Swedish. It's Smorgasbord. And I know I'm pronouncing that perfectly, aren't I? Yep. Yeah. I'm half Swedish, really, at heart. The first thing he mentions is the new religion and culture map mode, both of which, of course, have really needed a bit of a revamp. Well, religious one needed to just exist, really. So as such, the religious map mode, as they mentioned, was extremely high requested. I'm actually surprised that we didn't have a religious map mode from the launch, but now we do. It's very similar to the culture map mode, which also got a little bit of a revamp, by the way. He mentions that whilst implementing the religious map mode, we also took the opportunity to upgrade both of these map modes, so they now show if there are significant cultural or religious minorities in those states, so you don't just have the flat majority and that's it. You also have the hashed out minority, even the not just one of them, as many as, well, the top ones that you might have in a province. So for example, we see here in northern Transylvania, we've got close to 500,000 Protestants, 388,000 Orthodox, 140 Catholics, and 32,000 Jews. I have to say this is extremely inaccurate in my opinion. There was definitely not that many Protestants in northern Transylvania in 1836, because if there were that many Protestants, okay, and I will back this shit up with historical references if you really need me to. If there were that many Protestants and Catholics in 1836, then logically, since they were the majority, by 1919 you would have double that and less Orthodox. However, 1919 you had double Orthodox compared to Protestants and Catholics, despite having been a part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire up until that point. So what happened? Where did these old Protestants and Catholics go? Did they just disappear overnight? Did they stop having babies all of a sudden? No, this is just not accurate. Flat out not accurate at all. Sure, there were significantly more Hungarians in the northern Transylvanian parts compared to the southern Transylvanian part, but not that many. Far from it, actually. If anything, it would have been half Hungarian / German and the other half all Romanian. And I'm actually being generous now. In any case, this is what the religious map mode looks like in 1836 for Europe, at least. And I'm genuinely curious to know what this is. Is this some type of shamanism in the north? I don't know what this is. That's actually interesting. And same here. This is not Orthodox. This is something completely different, and I'm not sure what. This is the cultural map mode as well, which presents a lot better the cultures in South America. We have a clear divide, and we have a lot better illustration of the cultures in Brazil, especially with Afro-Brazilians being the majority, followed by Nordestino and Bahia, at least. We've got a lot more cultures in Quechua, well, at least a lot more diversity shown on the map itself, that is, and the good old Platinian being a clear majority in the south. Very important here, guys, national migration. They mentioned that they are aware that before, migration laws prevented your population from migrating between your own different states and your own country. Well, they fixed that with 1.7. Migration laws will only prevent pops from moving out or into your country. That's it. That means they can still move around within your country, so you can essentially just make one province that has most of the population and have it as the industrial heartland of your country easily now, a lot more easily than before. And the law actually does what it was supposed to be doing up until now. I know a lot of people are not even aware that the law as it is in the current version doesn't work the way it's supposed to be working, but you're probably going to be aware after reading this, aren't you? We also have here the 22 laws Japan starts with, and they mentioned that now with them having closed borders and isolationism, it's not going to impact the economy as much, because before, once you ran out of population in a state, you wouldn't be able to get pops from another state to migrate to that state because of the closed borders that you had. Well, now you can do that if you want to. So you can bring everybody in Kanto should you wish to, essentially. Starting with 1.7, that won't be a problem anymore, as countries with closed borders will allow their own pops to migrate between their states whilst still being close to the outside. Here's something I want to mention. So you guys know how in 1836 there was this thing called slavery and serfdom. One of the main features of serfdom, if I can call it features, anyway, you get it, you get it, was that serfs were not allowed to move from province to province. Serfs were essentially tied to the area where they live, so maybe serfdom could prevent migration of peasants between states. That would be cool. That would actually be historical, and it would, in my opinion, add a lot more flavor, and it would encourage people to switch away from serfdom even faster, right, to improve their economy, obviously. And it would give a purpose to actually move away from serfdom. I mean, obviously it's better to move away from serfdom because of weakening the landowners, but not just that, right? Having this as a debuff for the serfdom would be a major flavor buff, in my opinion. And if you don't believe me, look at this. Serfs could not marry, change occupation, or dispose of his property without the lord's permission. He was bound to his designated plot of land and could be transferred along with that land to a new lord should the lord wish to. They wouldn't be allowed to move between villages without the lord's permission. Serfs were often harshly treated and had little legal redress against the actions of their lord. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Makes me happy to know that I'm not living in the 1800s, you know? Another big change is the ability to support and guarantee independence pacts, which is a huge deal. This is going to have a massive impact, not only in multiplayer, where it's going to be obviously a major feature for this patch, but also in single player, because with the ability to guarantee the independence of certain nations, you can cock block your enemies from just massively expanding all around the place without you keeping them in check, right? So these are two new separate independent diplomatic pacts: support independence and guarantee independence, basically like you have in EU4. You can support the independence of nations, so when they break away, they will get you to fight on their side, and you can guarantee independence of nations. Once a nation is independent, if somebody attacks them, then you will join on the side of the nation whose guarantee you have, whose independence you guarantee. That's what I meant. We have an example here. An Indian-Canadian alliance might be somewhat unexpected, but I appreciate the enthusiasm to stop being under the British rule. So long, London. Support independence diplomatic pact with the Hudson Bay Company. It would also improve relations up to a maximum of +80, and the British East India Company will automatically support the Hudson Bay Company in independence, increase autonomy, or annex subject diplomatic plays. So if the English are trying to lower the autonomy or integrate the Hudson Bay Company, the Indians will join on the side of the Hudson Bay Company. So even your subjects, depending on their levels of integration, will be able to do it to each other, essentially. We have it shown here: guarantee independence and support independence as well. And Belgium, guess what, guys, starts with their independence guaranteed by the English, the Prussians, and the French. So no one's going to be able to take the Belgian lands without causing a world war, essentially. Another major feature that should again have been in the game from day one is the ability to have multiple active wars. So take note, you can have as many wars at the same time as you want. However, as it says here, you still need to wait for each diplomatic play to progress to war before starting another one. So it's going to take a few months between them, obviously, because a diplomatic play is not instant. But once you finish the diplomatic play and you started the war, you can instantly start another diplomatic play against another nation. Just make sure you have enough troops and you're ready for the implications, because it might make other nations trigger happy to attack you. So keep that in mind. Right here, France thinking they can take on Spain whilst already fighting Prussia. Notice the widget at the top. So you see here they're fighting the Prussians and they're already thinking about demand conquer state from the Spanish. Calling an ally now gives them a war goal of their choosing. Oh my god, this is so freaking good. This is actually so freaking good. So no longer will allies get frack all. Instead, they actually will be able to choose something from the war deal as long as they have the diplomatic maneuvers, right? There's a limit. So it says this war goal is subject to maneuvers limit but doesn't cost maneuvers for the war leader. So essentially, you could have your 100 maneuvers and then your ally is going to have their own maneuvers. I'm curious how many they would have, because if your ally has 100 maneuvers too, the nation getting attacked is going to get butt schnappled. Exactly, butt schnappled. You know what I'm talking about. There you go. See here, we have the sway attempt. If we accept, we will be able to add a war goal for ourselves as a secondary demand. So it's not a primary. So if the targeted nation backs up and the war doesn't happen, you get nothing. But the nation that attacked, your ally that attacked, will get their primary demand. So keep that in mind. Also, if you decline, it's going to break the alliance, as it is in U4. Another major fact is that overlords can now side against their subjects during revolution. So if your subject has a revolution like the Norwegians are having here, a religious revolt, and you want Norway to be a religious theocracy or whatever you want them to be, you can side on the side of yes. You can side on the side of the religious bits or whoever might be the rebels, and then that nation is going to be your subject. So you're not losing your subject anymore, okay? That snap's not going to happen. Whatever the case, you keep your subject. You just make your subject whatever you want them to be. You shape their path, I guess. Unidirectional truces. Now, what does that mean? It means if you stop guaranteeing the independence of a nation that you're guaranteeing the independence of, you get a truce with them, they don't get a truce with you. This is to prevent exploits, essentially, right? We've learned about that from EU4. This can be used to make sure that nations have a truce with you, and well, in previous patches, that's been patched in EU4 as well. So yeah, unidirectional truces. Careful if you guarantee somebody. If you stop guaranteeing them, you're gonna have a few years, 12 months to be more exact. You're gonna have a truce. Only you, they don't have a truce with you. Subjects can turn against overlords at high enough liberty desire. So when a subject has sizable amount of liberty desire, they're gonna be able to declare their independence from you. And if they get the support of some other nations that don't like you, then you're gonna have to fight a lot of nations to maintain your subject, meaning you're not gonna be able to conquer the whole planet anymore in 1.7 by just making everyone your subjects. Okay, that's not gonna happen anymore. It's going to be significantly more difficult now. Also, a subject might offer to support your enemies in exchange for their support in getting independence. So that means if an enemy wants to attack you and your subject offers to join against you in their war, despite being a subject, you might lose your subject as well as whatever war goals the enemy might have against you. So say Prussia attacks the British. Prussia wants to liberate, I don't know, Wales. Okay, just an example. And then the East India Company also says, we want to be independent, and you accept. Then if the British lose, they lose both Wales and the Indians. Auto downsizing for privately owned builds. So that's going to be something that's really well done. Actually, I'm glad to see this. Whenever a building is understaffed, it's going to automatically be downsized. So the private sector is not going to be an absolute cluster schnitzel of useless buildings as people were expecting it to be. They're actually doing a good job in making sure this is a proper, well-implemented system between private and national buildings. I'm glad to see that. I genuinely think that they needed at least a month and a half more to finish everything they want to do, because this is a really ambitious patch in my opinion. They're doing a lot of major changes, and if this turns out the way that I hope it will, then I genuinely feel like Victoria 3 is going to double in size of player, because it's a really great game. I played Victoria 3 in my own time a lot, right? I do know it has its bad parts. Obviously the combat's the way it is, and there's not as much flavor as other Paradox games, but it does have a lot of potential. The graphics are great. The game runs really well for me at least, and and it's just fun. It's actually fun. It's not try hard, and it's genuinely fun to play. So with a lot more flavor, like 1.7 is going to be adding for it, it's going to turn into an amazing game. We also got some new character outfits. We got over here the Chadicus Maximus von Schnitteldorfius, as I call this dude. He's totally not British, totally not. Then we have the Pusius Maximus Frenchicus. That's the actual designation of this uniform, as Paradox. I mean, I'm not sure why they called him that. We also have the Spanicius Smoldicius Inquisitionus, and we've got some new companies. The Afghan Nazajius Gababadaboob, which offers land trade capacity +5. Interesting. Hansung, Shungazong, and Iranian companies. A lot more that are gonna get added with the DLC, and a ton more also added with the free update. So big thank you to Paradox for adding also for the free update, not just for the DLC. I like that, you know, as a company, they always think about everybody, not just people that get the DLC, of course. Now, they also had a pretty massive power block dev diary one week ago, and I want to go really quickly through this because this is actually really good. There's a lot more stuff than we got in the previous dev diary for the power block, so we have a more in-depth explanation of the power blocks now. We've got essentially right now 5 identities, the Trade League, which is free with 1.7, then we also have Sovereign Empire, Military Treaty, Ideological Union, and Religious Convocation. This is what the Trade League looks like. Mandate Progress, Customs Union, Trade Routes for free, Trade League for power block statue production method, and internal trade is also unlocked. These are the principles right now: external trade, internal trade, heavily focused on countries banding together to focus on internal and external trade. So this is going to be really good if you want to just have an awesome economic game. The main thing about the Trade League is that their unique attribute automatically makes every power block member a part of a customs union under the power block leader. This lets you create the customs union part functionality, which will be removed with the 1.7 update. Don't worry, for all other identities there will be an alternative path which we'll get to see. So apparently 4 trade routes will be free of bureaucracy costs for the leader as well. And we got a 5% market access price impact for the internal trade 1 principle. That is freaking huge. Holy mother. Level 2, we got another 5%, or is it just the 5% from before? Does this stack up? That's the question. I'm guessing it doesn't stack up because that would be a little bit too powerful in that case, right? So we got infrastructure extra, more convoys, tariffs. It's pretty good when trading with nations outside the power block. Then we get an extra cost of port connections. Okay, that's not too bad. The level 3 upgrade is not really that impressive, not gonna lie. External trade, 75% trade route bureaucracy cost reduction with another power block member, and another -25 trade route bureaucracy cost and competitiveness for all power block members. Cool. This sees itself upgraded twice, and it allows on level 3 the establishment of trade routes without interest. It's good for small nations that you're able to do that without interest, because small nations are only going to have like 1, maybe 2 interests around the map, right? Now this is what the Sovereign Empire looks like. They have the ability to subjugate power block members, so obviously the British start off as a sovereign empire. They lower the Liberty Desire weekly for the leader, unlock Sovereign Empire for power block statue production method, and we have the principles here: exploitation of members and vassalization. At the start of the game, multiple power blocks will have this at their core, namely the British, Russians, and the Ottoman Empire. So all 3 of them start as a sovereign. Okay, that is really cool to see. I'm curious which one's going to have the vassalization and which one's going to have the exploitation of the members. The vassalization gives authority per subject, income transfer from subject, and allows enabling decrees on subject, whilst exploitation gives authority for yourself, lowers power block cohesion, and it also lowers the authority of your subjects, basically, or at least non-leader block members. Well, it sucks to be a part of that particular power block, doesn't it? At least it sucks if you're not the leader, right? The leader's getting all the juicy stuff whilst everybody else is getting butt schnappled again. This is what the military treaty looks like, and you can probably guess that Prussia is a military treaty, considering that, you know, the pickle hub is literally the icon for this power block. So it allows free war goals. Wait, free war goals. Interesting. Okay, all power block members, 50% reduction in military goods cost, prestige from army power projection. Okay, military treaty production method, and aggressive coordination. Okay, let's see what that's all about. Cannot start or join wars against power block members at level 1. Sway maneuver cost for diplomatic treaty, or better yet, diplomatic play target is 50% lowered, and obliged to join defensive diplomatic plays on power block member side. So that's actually pretty cool. That's genuinely really, really cool. That's like a proper NATO style defensive alliance, right? Where it's a defensive alliance, not an offensive one. However, the aggressive principles are completely different. You get infamy lowered, and I'm guessing Prussia starts with the aggressive one. War goal maneuver costs lowered as well. Then you start losing cohesion, but obliges to join all diplomatic plays on power block member side. Oh my god! So as Prussia, if you have 50 little German Schnappeldupes in your aggressive coordination principled power block, all 50 of them going to join every single engagement. Next up, we have the ideological union. Allows forced regime change or regime change. Enactment time lessened by 10%. Power block legal synergy. Unlocks ideological union production method. And let's see the principles here. Enactment stall chance reduction. Movement to preserve law support reduction. Restore law support. Okay, that's not bad actually. Maximum law enactment setback. That's holy shit. I like this. So this is really great if you want to just pass a lot of shitty laws that you have. Modernize your nation. So let's say you start as some nation that's got really horrible legislation. You go for this particular power block, you pass all the good legislation, and then you change to another power block. Something that's, you know, a little not so much legislation focused as this one is. Then the other side of principles, we got ideological truth, suppression, bolstering costs. All right, we got some impact, and we have 25 minimum legitimacy. Not bad. Last but not least, the religious convocation allows imposed state religion, 20% cohesion, and let's see, divine economic, devotee trade route competitiveness. All right, income transfer from heathen subjects. Wow. So this one basically encourages you to go out there and conquer all the heathens, or at least make them into subject. You also unlock clergy oversight for your as production methods for your manor house and financial districts. And you get more loyalists and less radicals from SOL increase/decrease. That's pretty freaking good. Holy shit, I actually like this one a lot. Whenever, if let's say you're playing as a nation that's not super expansionist, so say you're playing as Qing, right? They don't really need to expand at all in 1.7. They just need to make sure that their people are loyal. So what you can do is you can go for one of these divine leagues or whatever they're called, and you go for divine economics, and this loyalist radical bonus together with the interest group that also gives like a frack ton of extra loyalists, you can essentially have everybody as a loyalist in your country and just get insanely rich as consequence, right? On the other side, we have sacred civics, higher diplomatic proposal acceptance for countries with the same religion, reduce liberty desire for same religion, and impose same church and state law on power block members. Okay, that's cool, I guess. Including the 5 exclusive groups, there's 20 principal groups now, with 3 principles each for you to choose from. So there's 25 principal groups in total if we include the primary ones that we just reviewed and these. We got market unification here, which offers 5% MAPI and cannot place embargo on other power block members. A lot of great economic driven and trade driven bonuses for your market unification. Police coordination, bureaucracy cost reduction for cost of law enforcement, and minus 5% political movement radicalism. That's not bad. Foreign investment, increased leverage from economic dependence, cost of nationalization, 50% reduction, and foreign investment rights in power block member with lower rank is a guarantee. Ooh, juicy. They also mentioned since the last Dev Diary on power blocks, we've made some changes to how leverage works and also added a few more sources of leverage. Leverage is what you needed to build up in other countries to make them join your block. Apart from the resources mentioned last time, we've now added factors for adjacency, meaning if you have a direct adjacent or treaty port, for example, you get more leverage in that target country. High infamy values, on the other hand, will reduce the gain on leverage, so you will have to keep it in check if you want to make good use of the resources you're investing into building up leverage. So we have here a screen leverage advantage over Greece, minus 490 for the British Empire, total 484 leverage of Greece, currently exceeds the leverage from all power block. Holy snaps, that's a fuck ton of it. That is actually a fuck ton. We have some icons here for some of the other power blocks. These are the Ottomans, the Austrians. I don't know what the schnapps this is, but this is probably the Russians, I would assume. There's genuinely been a lot more things that have been shown in Dev Diaries. I'm not going to cover all of them. For example, the Great Game, which is a historical thing that happened. Basically, it's the struggle between the Russian Empire and the British Empire to maintain control over the Middle East, namely more so over Afghanistan and the Stands, because the British were scared that the Russians were trying to to push into India, and the Russians were trying to push into India in the long run, right? Which obviously they didn't succeed. But the point is that this is one of the most pivotal moments in Victorian history. So having this added to Vicky 3 should have been from the launch, but it wasn't. However, having this added and properly scripted and having the right flavor is just delicious. La creme de la creme, in my opinion. Glad to see this, and I hope this is the stepping stone for more similar events and more similar flavor added in the future. Now, I really hope development doesn't stop with this DLC. I hope the game keeps getting developed because I do think it's on the right track and it has so much potential. It really would be a shame if they stop now when it's just starting to get so freaking good, you know? I love Vicky 3 and I really wish to see it do really good. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Love you all too, and I'll see you in the next one.